What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD Mode Podcast weekly real estate tip. And today I'm here to discuss how to continue to grow your real estate business, even though sales continue to decline, even though transaction counts continue to decline month over month, how to not let that or allow that to impact your real estate business, and how to continue to grow your own sales, during these crazy times that we are in. And this, I was inspired to create this actual podcast today. I was reading an article on ZeroHedge, and the source of the article is Bloomberg. But the article stated this, that for the month of November, we had a 7.7 month over month decline in existing home sales. And we've had 10 straight months now of declines. So in the article, it stated that this is the biggest year over year drop since the Lehman collapse in 2008, and the longest streak of sales declines since 1999. And I think we're seeing it in all of our different markets, right? Like I'm here in Phoenix, Arizona, and I know real estate is one of these very hyper local things. What happens here in my market in Phoenix, Arizona may not be taking place in your market, but we're seeing the overall amount of transactions continuing to decline. Now, this is different, obviously, than sales amounts. I'm not saying that, valuations decrease 7% month over month. We're just talking about actual transaction count. And again, this podcast today, this real estate tip is all based around how to not allow that to impact your business, how to, just because overall transaction count is down nationally or even in your local market, doesn't mean your business needs to suffer from it. As long as you plan accordingly, you pivot, you shift, you adapt accordingly, you work smart, you will be good to go, and can even have the opposite effect take place. You can continue to grow your sales volume, continue to grow your transaction count, even though the overall market is experiencing something different, right? The market itself doesn't dictate our success. It's our actions, our commitments, what we do internally, our own actions, our own commitments that dictate our overall success. So here's what we're going to break down today is how to go out there and continue to expand this transaction count. Now, real quick, before I jump into the different points and the different strategies I'm going to walk you through today, if you haven't already, make sure to check out gsdmode.com. That's my website for this podcast. On there, you can check out all the different places of this podcast. So if you're listening in the car, wherever, you can link to all of those. But I also have a lot of additional free resources in there. I've got a current free training taking place right now, which is a 3-hour in-depth 100% free, no strings attached masterclass that's walking you through exactly how to pivot, shift, and adapt during these changing times. So it's an awesome training taking place right now that you can go join. I've got my free ebook in there, which are 42 top tips, strategies, everything from scripts to objection handlers to morning routines to self-development, really covering my 42 top tips that have allowed me to become one of the top agents and team leaders on the planet in that book, both 100% free. Go check those out. All right. So then from there, let's just jump on in. Okay. So how to, again, continue to grow our own personal transaction count, whether it's ourselves personally or our teams, our own brokerages, how to have this influence and not allow the fact that total transactions are declining in our markets or nationally impact us, right? Because what's going on with the rest of the market doesn't need to be what's going on in our world. Just because, the economy as a whole might be facing a recession doesn't mean you need to be facing a recession, right? So I think that all that makes sense. But how do we go out there and be strategic and tactical with this? All right. So number one, this becomes really important, right? This is just allowing you to go out there and adapt accordingly. And with this, I'm just going to share with you guys what I'm doing. As you guys know, well, in case you're new to this podcast, I don't just have this podcast. I actually, have this as kind of a, fun thing that I do, with interviews and just putting content out there. But I'm in the trenches just like you. I'm running and operating my real estate team. I'm a full-time, realtor / team leader here in Phoenix, Arizona. So here's things that we are doing to pivot accordingly. Now here in Phoenix, Arizona, just so you guys are aware, my market's been one of the hardest hit markets so far nationwide, and Phoenix is a historic boom and bust market, and we are getting hit and unwinding really, really fast in our market. So, I've had to really pivot, shift, and adapt more so than others maybe in other markets thus far. We're all going to have to pivot, shift, and adapt, at some point here, and hopefully you are already. But number one is just identify what's going on with the amount of transactions. So whether you look at this from a number count or a percentage account in your own market. So go into your MLS and start running these stats, running these numbers, historically. So if you compare this to, last year, like what was happening last year, what was happening in, so 2021, 2022, 2020, 19, 18, I keep this data. I personally go through and keep this data on a month by month basis. And I have since I've been in the industry since 2005. 4.5. So I can go through quickly. And you don't, even if you haven't kept a spreadsheet on all of this stuff like I have, over the last 18 years, you can go into your MLS and you can run reports. You can sit there and see, month over month, and based on that month and a year as a total as well, what the average sales are happening in your overall market. And then you can sit there and see, either from a number standpoint or percentage standpoint, how much sale as far as transaction count is down in your market. So right now we're not talking about valuations. We're just talking about transaction count. So as an example, in my market, sales are down just above 50%, right? So, typically we might be averaging between 9 and 10,000 sales on a monthly basis. Now we're averaging, about between 4 and 5,000. So sales are down about 52% overall month over month in my market. That just means that there's 52% less transactions happening right now, and this has been the case for a lot of months now. For I'm really probably since about April of this year. So for about 6, more than 6. Months, but 6+ months now, this has been taking place. So I can see this now as a trend that, okay, if we're at 50, then, and with this, and what this tells you then is, okay, well, what do I need to make up for that differential, right? So, and this is, I look at this as just, for me, when I look at that number, to me, it's just common sense that, okay, I got to make up that difference. If that shows me that there's 50% less people transacting right now in my market, well, then that means I got to then double down on my lead generation and my lead follow-up efforts in order to go out there and have that same result, right? So then I look at that, then I'm like, okay, I just got to go out there. And I know that this may not be what everybody wants to hear. I know so often we're looking for that magic pill, right? That secret sauce. But sometimes, well, almost never does that exist, right? So, this is just the reality of the situation. If I've got 50% less people, or over 50%, 52% less transactions taking place, 52% less people willing to buy homes in my market. My market, dude, it's grown. It's expanded in the last 12 months. Phoenix Metro is one of the fastest growing, if not the fastest growing metros in the United States. So that just means there's less people willing to go out there and transact on real estate today. Okay, so then if I look at that, that just shows me then that I've got to double the amount. And when I say double the amount of lead gen and lead follow-up, that's just to then, like whatever my goals are, if my goals scaled up, let's just say I want to grow my business by 20%, in 2023 over 2022. Well, whatever my lead count was, historically, to make that a reality, I got to double it from there. Right? Like if I just doubled my efforts in 2023 from what took place in 2022, right? That just may mean that I'm just kind of going status quo, meaning that my production is going to be the same. So whatever your lead generation count is, the amount of leads that you're generating and the amount of follow-up, right? I'm not saying that you got to double the amount of follow-up that you're doing with each lead. If you have an effective lead follow-up protocol that's converting your leads per your lead source at good ratios, right? I'm not saying that you got to change anything there, but if you're having double the leads come in, that just means that you got to also double the amount of your overall lead follow-up time with that. So just, again, prep accordingly, understand what your numbers are, how far that transaction count is, then from there, adjust accordingly and so forth. Now, the second point that I want to hit on here, because, when I talk about doubling the amount of leads that you got to generate and doubling the amount of lead follow-up time that you got to do. Now, this does not mean that you need to double the amount of hours that you have to go out there and work. Yes, you're going to have to work more hours, more likely than not. Yes, you're going to have to be more focused. Yes, you're going to have to be more committed. Just the reality of the times that we are in. There's just going to be seasons. Everything has different seasons, and the business cycle is no different. Where there's different seasons where, dude, like you just got to put in more work. You got to put in more focus. You got to be, you got to be on your A game. And unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at this, I look at this as a fortunate thing. Success is only reserved for those that are truly committed. It's not reserved for those that are interested, right? Those that are just interested. And the difference between interested and committed means those that are interested just do things when they feel like doing it, when they emotionally feel like doing it, when it's convenient, when it's easy. No, commitment is I got to do the necessary things that I must do to make my goals a reality, whether I want to or not, whether it's hard, whether it's easy, whether I'm having a good day, bad day, whether I'm motivated or not, I'm going to get the shit done that I have to do regardless of my emotional state, right? So we're just in one of those seasons that we got to go down and put in more energy and more effort. But again, it doesn't mean that you necessarily have to double the amount of hours that you are overall working. As long as you're being intentional with this and you are being intelligent, you are being smart with your overall business setup. And the best way to be more effective and efficient with this. And there's two different ways here. Is number one, making sure that you are tracking your data, you're tracking your numbers, you know your numbers inside and out. So then that way, and as far as what to track, let's just break that down here first. So I'm going to make sure that I'm tracking my number of leads per lead source, right? So based on each lead source that I have, I'm going to want to know the number of leads that I have to generate, obviously, to go out there and close a deal. That's going to be kind of the basic things that everybody knows of, right? So number of leads per lead source, and how many leads that I need to go out there and generate per that lead source to go out there and close one sale. Now, if this is marketing, I want to know my cost then per lead. So then that way I can calculate my cost per acquisition. So let's just say I'm doing Facebook leads. Well, if you're averaging $5 a Facebook lead and you're closing one closing per 100 Facebook leads, okay, your cost per acquisition is $500, right? Well, then from there, if your average commission then is 10 grand, we're spending $500 to make 10 grand. That's a pretty good cost per acquisition, right? A pretty good overall ROI, on that lead source. So I'm going to want to track, again, number of leads per lead source, overall cost per lead. Then from there, we also need to understand and track our effort. Like, how much effort does it take to then convert that lead? So I'm also tracking then my reach outs, right? So I'm tracking, how many dials am I making to those overall leads, right? So how many dials, how many conversations, how many appointments set, how many appointments conducted, how many clients, then how many closings, and obviously what my closing commission is, for that gives me a great data set, right? That way, then I know, based on each lead source, again, how many dials does it take? How many reach outs, how many conversations, how many appointments set? This stuff becomes, the path is in the math. This stuff, then we can sit there and break down on a daily basis in order to hit our goals. Well, how many leads must we generate per lead source? How many reach outs do we need to make? How many conversations do we need to have? How many appointments do we need to be setting? How many appointments do we need to be conducting? How many clients, how many closings, and so forth. And we can take that and know that on an annual basis, then break it down monthly, then break it down weekly. Then that way you can break it down a step further, and you then know if you are winning or losing on a daily basis. Now, I know that, I probably lost a lot of you that are either watching or listening to this when I started talking about tracking. It's not the fun thing. It's not the sexy thing. Inside business, at least in the real estate business, I get it. We're salespeople. We like to be face-to-face. We like to be in the action. We don't necessarily like, living in spreadsheets and so forth. So, but the reality is this, you guys, is the language of money is numbers. And if you don't know your numbers inside your business, you are always going to be prohibited and hindered by the amount of money that you can go out there and make. Now, I know that there might be other reasons in addition to making money that you're in this business. Maybe it's freedom, maybe it's, have the flexibility of schedule and so forth. But if you don't have a certain amount of dollars coming in the door, none of that shit's going to matter. Right? We're going to become a statistic. We got to drop out of the industry, go get another job, whatever. Like, this thing is going to end if we don't know that. So anybody, like any top producer inside this industry, knows their numbers inside and out. This becomes a non-negotiable. So just make sure that you have your numbers. It's the only way to make smart strategic decisions, to know how to allocate your time, to make sure that this business is fully predictable. When it's measured, you can fully predict what you need to be doing on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis, to make sure that you are hitting your goals on that annual, on whatever your annual goals are. Then you also can make smart decisions inside your business. Like, how do I know if I should allocate more money to, Facebook leads versus Realtor.com or versus Zillow? Or, hey, should I do more open houses? Or is this a waste of my time? Which networking groups are most effective? Like, if I'm not tracking that, maybe I'm doing a lot of networking groups. Well, I should be tracking each networking group separately, right? How many leads come from each of those networking groups? How many, and then overall efforts that I'm doing, like we just talked about, through that whole funnel. So then I can sit there and see, not all things are created equal. You've got the 80-20 rule exists. Typically, 80% of what we're investing our time, energy, money, and so forth is only producing us 20% of our results, right? And then 20% of what we're investing our time, energy, money, resources, then, return that 80% of results. So how do you know, like, which side of that equation that's on? You can't without tracking your numbers. So tracking then allows us to be intentional with our time, to make sure that we're setting enough time throughout the day. Like, if I know exactly how many leads I need to generate, how many reach outs and conversations I have to have on a daily basis, I can allocate for that correctly on my schedule and make sure that those things are hit. So that's number one. The second component to this is making sure that you've got your follow-up systems in place, right? And that comes down to your CRM. Your CRM, your tracking system it allows you to make smart strategic decisions inside your business, what to scale, what not to scale, allows that predictability, right? Your CRM becomes your number one asset, your number one tool that you're working out of, that you're working in, that allows you to become effective and as efficient as absolute possible, right? So this can allow you just to go out there where you can, again, be more effective, be more efficient, get shit done at a higher level, through your CRM. So make sure though, you guys, as a lot of you guys know, I own a CRM company, a website company. I'm not creating this video to, plug that, but Perfect Storm, you can go, I guess I will do a shameless plug since I'm talking about it anyway, but perfectstormdemo.com, but the cool thing about watching that demo is even if you have a CRM that you like and that you enjoy, going through that, I recommend that you watch that. Even if you're not looking for a CRM, you love your CRM that you have, whatever, that's me going through and showing you the exact setup that I have and how I set mine up, right? So then that way you can see how I'm being effective and efficient. And you can carry that over to, whatever system that you use. So again, that's perfectstorm@demo.com. Or you can go to gsdmode.com, hit the Perfect Storm tab at the top there and watch that demo. But anyway, like making sure, okay, I've got all my lead sources set up. So my contact sources set up inside my CRM. So I'm able to track based on what those lead sources are. That can help, with the overall tracking. But then also I look at, okay, with the overall contact type. So is this a lead? Is this a client? Is this a under contract? Is this a pending? Based on that. And then also based on, okay, is it a buyer or a seller? Obviously, that's going to dictate how we follow up and what we say in those conversations. Somebody's buying versus selling, based on the overall category, buyer, seller, buyer and seller, whatever. And then based on the contact type. So is this a lead? So let's just say, if it's a buyer and then it's a lead. So I got the category and the type. Then from there, based on the lead source that it comes in on, that then dictates how those combine together. So as an example, buyer lead that comes in from Facebook, boom, that dictates and kicks off my whole entire follow-up protocol. Right. And I have my systems and any systems can, for the most part, do this. But you got to feed it the instructions. This is up to you. If you want to have success with it doesn't matter what CRM that it is. And again, I know that I'm a little bit biased here, but it doesn't, at the end of the day, like they can all be effective. It comes down to how well are you working them? What are the instructions that you are feeding it and how well are you working it? So meaning, do you have your autoresponders set up? Do you have all of your drips set up? Do you know how to work that thing accordingly? So then from there, like I get a Facebook lead that comes into my system, automatically fires up the autoresponder email, autoresponder text, automatically is going to trigger the 1,000-day long email text drip plan. So then all I have to do is log in there, set up the daily property alert, and then it's going to task me automatically to go out there and start doing my calls, right? And my calls with that lead source are going to be call same day, then every other day for the first 14 days, then every 21 days for that first year. And that frequency, even though it sounds aggressive, it is aggressive because call answer rates are lower today than they've ever been, but I'm not aggressive with people. I'm not aggressive with my communication. That only exists until communication's been established. I know what their timeframes are, what their goals are, what their expectations are, then that's adjusted accordingly. But the whole point of this is I have my CR, I've taken the time to learn my CRM, to know my CRM, to feed it the right instructions, to have it set up where then it eliminates the guesswork. It just tells me all I got to do is go in there each and every day and clear out my daily task queue. I just got to make sure I'm feeding it the right amount of lead volume that I need per lead source, on a daily, weekly basis to make my goals a reality. Then from there, my CRM is either handling the things it can handle for me, right? Doing all the, property alerts, doing the audit, the drip emails, drip text messages, all of that. Then it's automatically tasking me and telling me exactly when and what to do, when to do it as far as my phone call. So eliminates that guesswork. This then allows me to go out there and be more effective and efficient with my overall follow-up. So this is how I said, you guys, like, yeah, you got to double the amount of, like if your sales are down 50% like mine are, and like a lot of your markets might be, okay, well, you might have to double the amount of lead gen and lead follow-up that you're doing, but it doesn't mean if you have the right tracking set up and the right system set up to support you through this and allows you to work as effectively and as efficiently as you possibly can, it doesn't mean that you've got to go out there and double your hours. Okay, so then from there, the last component here, and I got my notes here just to stay on point with you. All right, so then from there, Well, one other important note that I want to point out before I get into this last point is you guys, this too shall pass. Like, just understand this. So often there's this thing called, recency bias, where we think that, or it's easy for our minds to get wrapped up into thinking whatever's going on right now is like the new norm, or whatever it may be. Like, maybe you're in a tough spot in your relationship. Well, it's easy to sit there and think about and just become absorbed with, that tough time in that relationship. And then you forget about all the good times in the past, and so forth. Just understand that this too shall pass. Nothing is permanent. Everything is temporary. This market is temporary. This too shall pass. There's going to come a time when the market figures, out what the market has to figure out, when prices come down to an affordable price point again, or when that affordability hits where it needs to hit, and the market corrects itself and does its own thing that it's going to do, right? This transaction count issue will be fixed. Whatever it is that we're going through will be fixed. Even during like 08 through, 08, well, really 07 through about 2012, which, that was about, 5-year span of time. That was heavy, and the worst housing market in recorded history. Is doing a lot of short sales, a ton of foreclosures, ton of REOs during that time. Man, it felt like that was going to last forever. Well, then now years later, and now that I've been in the business for 18 years, that feels like a spit in a bucket, man. Like, just understand that this time isn't going to be permanent. This too shall pass. Just like the craziness that we saw in 2020 and 2021 and early 2022, where you had 50 offers in every single property, and that was a pain in the ass all in its own right. That eventually ended, so this thing, this too shall pass. But here is the great thing about what's taking place right now. And this is just what happens in declining markets. Whether you want to look at this as a good thing or a bad thing, I choose to look at this as a good thing, is that there's going to be, and there already is, but there's going to continue to be a rising number in the percentage or the number of agents just dropping out of this industry. Like in my market, there's over 30% already this year that have pieced out. So there's going to hit that time where the amount that drop out and that are disengaged and just demotivated to go out there and take action, like the amount of transactions taking place will greatly outweigh the amount that drop out and are disengaged. So, there's going to come that time where that pendulum swings, and there'll be a much bigger piece of the pie to be had, for this, so we're having to go out there and plant those seeds right now. But man, the fruits of your labor, like if you do the right things and you are committed during this time, those fruits will pay off, right? So just understand that. Okay, so then the third and last point here is to make sure also, as we are going through this, that you are evaluating your overall business and your overall market, and identifying, do you need to pivot and shift the way that you are doing business? So we already talked about, tracking. We already talked about doubling lead gen, lead follow-up. We already talked about, CRM setup, being more effective and efficient. But now we're talking about your overall business makeup, overall business structure. So this comes down to, there's going to be different times in different markets. Part of this is having to pivot and shift with your ideal client. So asking yourself is there an adjustment needed inside my business? We shifted this very heavily in I'd say about March of 2022. So this year, I know that we're getting close to 2023. So depending on when you watch this, but about 9 months ago, we made a shift in my overall business because our market started unwinding so fast and pivoting. We had to ask ourselves, and one thing that we're always asking ourselves is, who is the market currently good for? Because you got to understand, there is no such thing as a good market or a bad market. The market is always good for somebody. It's our job as real estate professionals is to identify who the market is good for, and then pivot, shift, and adapt our marketing efforts, our energy, our focus, prospecting and so forth to whom it is good for. Real estate's always traded hands, always has, always will. Even though there's a lesser percentage of those that are, that are transacting right now, the market's always still going to be good for somebody. So we started evaluating that and looking at that, and we're like, hey, dude, like, who's in control right now? It's buyers. It shifted very quickly from sellers being in control, again, 50 offers in every single property, to, all of a sudden, dude, sellers are, listings are just coming on the market on droves in our market, stacking the days on the market, people not, wanting to take it on those listings, look at those listings, whatever. We're looking at this. We're like, man, if we had a buyer that was ready, willing, and committed, ready, willing, able, and committed right now, they're in control, and it's great for them. Then we started looking at all the metrics. We're sort of like, on every single metric that we could go out there and measure, like, it's the best time to go out there and buy that we've seen in over 3 years. And again, this may not be the case for your market, but I'm just walking you through kind of my thought process of how we pivoted. So then that way you can apply this, in even though your ideal client might be different. But I'm asking myself, well, who's in control? Who's this market good for? Well, it came to be about buyers, right? So we looked at this with buyers. We're like, okay, we've got over 3 times the amount of inventory that we had on the market even at this time. This was just even a few months ago, right? So, but if we look at today versus a year ago, well over 3 times the amount of inventory in the market. So a year ago, they were having to settle based on location, based on amenities, but they were having to settle. Now they don't have to settle. They can get their dream home, dream location, dream amenities, dream features, right? They're not competing against 50 other offers. The sellers, willing to do repairs, willing to pay closing costs. You got that same property is probably $100,000, maybe 50 to $100,000, depending on the exact price point, less today than it was a year ago. So we're looking at this, we're like, okay, dude, like on all of these metrics, it's way better to go out there and buy today than it was, a year ago. However, the one caveat to that, and the one obstacle, this is something always to pay attention to when it comes to your lead gen and your overall lead follow-up and your ideal clients, is what is the pain point? Like what is still prohibiting from moving forward? Well, it became interest rates, because even though a house was $100,000 less today than it was a year ago, with interest rates being higher today than it was a year ago, when we plug that into a mortgage calculator, that payment might still be $500 more on a monthly basis than it is today. So then we were like, okay, how can we go out there and get a large enough concessions to go out there and buy these rates down? So then we started identifying, okay, well, who's most desperate in our market, like who's most motivated in our market to be able to give a significant concessions, because again, check with your lenders on this stuff, but with our lender partners that we started checking into as we were going through this due diligence was, hey, a 20% down conventional buyer can get up to 9% seller concessions. They can use 2 to 3% of that for closing costs, and they got 5 to 6% of that for rate buy downs. So they're like, okay, well, who in our market then is going to be motivated enough to go out there and unload a property, sell a property at today's market value, plus in addition to that, give that seller concession? Well, then boom, we started looking at that as new builds. That's why we started with this, so we started having conversations with new build sales reps. Hey, we got clients all day long that want to buy your product, but we need you to offer this, size of a concession so we can get these rate buy downs. Are you willing to do that? And almost all of them are willing to play ball. Some are more so than others, but they're all, for the most part, all willing to play ball. We also started looking at, well, who else? Okay, we had all these iBuyers, all these flip companies that are stuck on all these properties. So you can go out there and find these opportunities. Well, then though, that becomes part of our lead gen. That becomes part of our overall communication, our lead follow-up, and so instead of, like we're excited for our buyer clients right now, when the rest of the media is talking about how shitty it is for buyer clients, we're like, oh, this is amazing. With all of our marketing and all of our follow-up conversations, it's the best time to go out there and buy that we've seen in the last 3+ years. Here's why. Here's how we're able to get you the lower price for that property, get those payments affordable. Here's what we're doing. We're excited having those great conversations, and able to go out there and convert those buyers. So, right now in our market, like declining markets are great for buyers, great for upsizers, right? Declining markets are the best time for upsizers. When's the last time we've seen a declining market? Since like 2012. So, if we can get the right rate buy down, this is the best market that we've seen for upsizers really since about 2012, 2013. For upsizers. Now, there will come a time as the markets continue to decline, if it declines significantly enough, where then it becomes great and attractive again for investors and, other types of buyers, right? So this is why, though, it's not, at least in my market, it's not there yet, right? Like rates haven't come down enough, and, we got rents coming down, we got prices coming down, like cap rates still, aren't there yet, where it's still, great for investors yet, but there will come that time. Again, if I guess I shouldn't say that for a fact, because it depends on what happens with this damn market. But my moral of this, though, is always paying attention, because this shit can shift fast. Your ideal client today might be different in 90 days from what it is today. So this is where you need to always be evaluating and be asking yourself, okay, what type of a client am I going after? I was having a conversation with a dude the other day that was just in his market. He was just focusing on sellers, and he's like, I need to get a more effective way to get more seller clients and get more closings. But I asked him, because it was just, he was facing some resistance. I'm like, why are you so attached to sellers? Like, I love sellers too. Don't get me wrong. I love sellers too. But I just asked the question, and he's like, well, I don't know. I guess it's just what I've always done. And he goes, but he started thinking about it. And he goes, yeah, but you're right, man. If I had, like ready, willing, able buyer clients in my market right now, yeah, we could go find them the house that they want. They're in control. They get to dictate the terms right now, get them under contract. They're stoked. They're ecstatic. I'm like, yeah, why don't you add that? Like, keep, what you're doing for sellers right now, like keep adding that play. But in addition to that, go snag all these extra buyers that are out there, these buyer clients, and go out there and, add that to your portfolio of business, right? So just again, evaluating your markets. You guys can do that due diligence with that, but go out there and evaluate that. Last point here is make sure that you are treating your business as a business. Pay attention to what's happening in your market, the different, when and how you need to pivot with your market. As I said earlier, success is only reserved for those that are truly committed. So make sure that you are truly committed, not just interested, but committed. So you are willing to do the necessary things that you must do in your business to go out there and succeed. So stay committed, attach to the process, and you will crush it. All right, you guys, again, just a quick reminder, if you haven't already, go check out gsdmode.com. Highly recommend, highly encourage you guys to jump on my 3-hour masterclass, which is my 6 steps to 3xing more your real estate business within the next 12 months, regardless of the market, boom, bust, crash, or anything in between. I'm walking you through the 6 fundamentals that I live, eat, breathe, and die by inside my business, to allow you to grow your business year after year, regardless of the market. Again, 100% free, no strings attached. Highly go recommend it and jump into there. We do a lot of deep dive into strategy, a lot of different things in it that we cover. Also, make sure to go snag my ebook that is on gsdmode.com too. That ebook is my 42 top, when I say my 42 top tips, 42 top tips that I published inside that book, that go through different scripts, different objection handlers. Like, if you enjoy these tips, there's 42 of these, all just in written format, and all 100% free, no strings attached, nothing being sold in that book, just out there to help you grow your business. So anyway, guys, truly appreciate your support. Keep crushing it, keep kicking ass, and I will see you next time. Peace.